Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, my friends, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will. And today we're here to talk a little Worlds Beyond Number, the Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. But before we jump into that, you know how we do. We like our little awkward chats and coffee talks. So I don't know if there's actually too much to report today, as it were. I actually just finished my coffee, but I will cheers you with my water bottle.
I got a second cup for the stream.
So it's gonna be a 2-cup day for me, but I just finished my first one, so I always try to wait a few hours at least.
Yeah, I powered 2 back to back yesterday, and I definitely had the jitters
I
like
hate that.
around
I
2
hate
or
that
3.
feeling so much.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, what did I do to myself?
Yeah, it always makes me anxious. So I always gotta be on the lookout. Also, I think I overcorrected on my camera here. Let me fix it.
Speaking of anxious, I still do not have a new baby. Just waiting,
that's actually
waiting
what I
every
was
day.
about to ask you. Like, what's? I mean, I know you don't know, but like, you think it's any moment type of situation, or?
It's not any moment, I don't think.
Yeah.
Um, I think. I mean, the due date's Wednesday, so
I mean,
and
we're here.
our first two came around then. So my daughter came on the due date, and then my son came 2 days after, I think, 3 days after. So
Is is
um,
um is getting induced on the table, or will it just be it happens
Joy
when it
doesn't.
happens?
We don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I love how like today's world, you always have to get the disclaimer of, not there's anything wrong with it,
Yeah.
But Joy just really wants it to be natural and when it's
Yeah.
supposed to happen. And fortunately, like we won't have to have that conversation until probably about a week from now. We had a
Okay.
checkup today. We have another checkup on Thursday. Um, and probably if we're still don't have a new baby by next, like a week from today, that'll
Then
probably have to
yeah.
be a
Okay.
conversation.
At,
Because it gets to be a point where it's like no longer good
yeah.
for the baby.
Yeah.
So
And like
anyway,
at this point, it's number 3, not y'all's first rodeo, but like is there much like re-prep you have to do, like in terms of like baby prepping the house, or or is all that like that's just how it is
it's
already?
it's definitely different because like the first time there's a little bit of like a little bit of a ritual behind it of like getting the baby room ready and like
Yeah, yeah.
getting all that stuff. And that ritual is kind of fun. I think it loses a little bit of its. I guess you don't feel the urgency around that by
Yeah.
the third one.
That makes sense.
And the other dynamic that's interesting is having other children and being like, oh yeah, when we go to the hospital, who's going to watch our kids?
Yeah.
you know, and so kind of just figuring out logistics. Um,
And
so
are they excited?
oh yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah, they're
figured.
excited.
And we
So
wait, never mind. We don't know the name yet, right? You guys
I don't know
haven't.
the name.
Okay.
I probably won't ever share the name online either,
Oh, okay.
just because I just don't. That's one thing that we're kind of particular about
Yeah.
is just social media and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it is a girl though.
It's a crazy world. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Um.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, what are we here for today?
Yeah. Yeah. Um.
Little worlds beyond chatter.
A little Worlds Beyond. We got episode 49. There's only 5 more, I think, after this.
Yeah, I think
So we are
54 is
in
the
the
last
end
one.
game.
hmm
But yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Not too much else to dive into. I guess the only things is Age of Umbra is happening right now on Critical Role side of the world, and we are doing a little discussion series on that. So be sure to check that out. We'll have episode 2 coming out this week, with a new episode of that on Thursday. Watch party in the Discord as always, and then you know I was gonna say patent pending. That doesn't make sense, but I'll just say patent pending this new baby arriving. um, I don't know what phrase I'm actually looking for. We may or may not have our live stream Friday.
Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah. It's probably 50-50, I
yeah.
would say.
So maybe,
So
maybe not, but hope to see you guys there if so. Um, yeah. Anything else to add that I'm forgetting?
I don't think so. Join the Discord.
Yeah. Well, all right. Without further ado, in that case, let's jump
Oh,
into it.
hang on, let me click
Yeah,
record. All right, we're good.
yeah. um, Without further ado, in that case, let's jump into it. And as you guys know, we always like to recap the episodes before we dive into our discussion, and we cut that out, post it separately. So if you're just on that recap, be sure to check out our full discussion video. But let's get into it. This was episode 49 of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, titled The New World. Excuse me. So we pick up with Ame taking flight on her broom for the very first time, as she basically flees 12 brooks from the wizard Slate, who was looking for her. And Brennan, of course, as he does, gives this like beautiful exposition on witches and their first flight and how that is how the term cackle originated in this world, based upon just like the joy and feeling that a witch is filled with when they fly for the first time. So Ame and the fox both have a cackle as they lift off and fly, and she's basically trying to catch up with the Epiphany and Suvi and find a way to save her. So they try to come up with a plan, and they quickly realize that Task, Suvi's spider, is also with them. And Task is able to point the direction to Suvi, which is very helpful. But he does not have his like connection with Suvi to where they can communicate. Like there is some sort of blockade preventing that, presumably from the Epiphany or some of the spells that are on Suvi right now. So they're just kind of blindly chasing the ship at this point, and Ame realizes, I think with some sort of Arcana check or something, perhaps with the assistance of Task telling her about the ship, that it has so many defenses that it is going to be virtually impossible for her to just like pull up on this ship and like just try to be like, hey, like I'm here to talk to Suvi. Like she's going to be bombarded with so many like dispel magics and identification spells. Like that is just not realistic at all. So she's sitting there trying to determine like, what can I do? When she realizes that there are two spirits beneath her, like she can sense the presence of two other spirits flying towards the ship. And she realizes that they are going to trigger these defense mechanisms if they get too close. So she like swoops down to see what these are and finds out that it is actually Cyril and Enzo, Suvi's two previous two like demonic familiars that she had sent on missions to deliver letters to some of these wizards. And so they are approaching to deliver said letters. So Ame stops them, basically very quickly explains the situation to them, and that Suvi is now a prisoner on that ship. And through a natural 20 persuasion roll, is able to convince them to kind of hold up on their missions and cooperate with her to see if they can come up with some sort of plan here. So, again, after much deliberation, she basically realizes that it's an impossible task to do anything with this ship. So their best bet may be to wait until Suvi gets off the ship. And they see that it's traveling in the direction of the Citadel. And so they're like, okay, but if we try to go to the Citadel, that has its own defenses. Like, that doesn't really solve our problem. And ultimately, Ame remembers that there are those permanent teleportation gates in the Citadel connected to other parts of the world. And in particular, that there's one in Cairo. So Ame is like, okay, well, if I can get to Cairo, which is much closer than the Citadel, then perhaps I can just teleport inside the Citadel that way. And then we'll, come up with a plan to help Suvi. So that's kind of the impression we're left with. Ame is going to head to Cairo. But then we scene transition to Ame's cottage, where Ursulon and these 80 Grenault children have just arrived. Or not just arrived, but we're checking in with them. And we know that they're all running around, playing. All of these spirits that are there are helping out, like Mr. Soup and Hina Hina Mohe. It's basically all hands on deck. And Ursulon and Neef are basically trying to come up with a plan to help deal with these kids. And essentially, Neef really relates to them because she's not that much older than some of these kids. And she too has never really had a home or a place to go. So she's like really impassioned about helping these kids. And so she takes it upon herself to basically start interviewing all of them so she can find out where they live, where their parents are, if they have parents, if not, what are we going to do with them, etc., etc. So Ursulon tells her that, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you so much for helping me with this. And she basically sets off on those interviews. Meanwhile, Ursulon decides to go to town in order to get some supplies for the 80 children who need to eat. So he heads to Toma, and his first stop is Lohans, the baker. And he basically tells Lohan, hey, we got 80 kids here. Can you help us out? I'll pay you as much as I can. Like, we just need some assistance here. So Lohan, of course, is going to help. And he says he will also put the word out around town to get everyone to, help out, check in supplies, all that jazz. So we then basically cut to a little bit later in the day when all of this has happened, and basically all the people of Toma have banded together and are bringing food and supplies and just helping out these 80 children. And as that's all happening, we kind of have this moment where Ursulon is standing with, again, all of the spirits that are there at Ame's cottage. And for the first time, he recognizes the eternal, the infinite in them, because now Ursulon himself has finally captured his own breath as the spirit of freedom. So he's now recognizing that in others. And of course, once again, we have this very poetic scene from Brennan where he's talking about that Ursulon realizes there's no such thing as a lesser spirit. They all represent like this beautiful eternal thing. And these spirits also recognize this in Ursulon for the first time. So great moment. And basically what that boils down to is Ursulon tells them that his next step in this plan is to visit a shrine to Orima to not only thank her for her help with the steed that she gave him previously, but also to ask for her help now with these children. And they're like, the other spirits are like, yeah, that's a good idea. And you should probably do that now. Like, time is of the essence. So Ursulon decides to head back to Toma because there is a shrine to Orima there. And he sets off walking down the road to do this. And as he does, he starts to hear footsteps behind him. And Ursulon says, I pause. Do I still hear the footsteps moving behind me? And Brennan says, yes, they always keep moving. Implying that it is the man in black, the stranger in the night, the pilgrim under the stars. And then we cut away from Ursulon, but I'll hand it over to you there.
Salon can't stop having these run-ins, man. Goodness. Well, basically the last 45 minutes or so of this episode takes place back aboard the Epiphany from Suvi's perspective. And Suvi is brought into an inner room, Steele's room within the Epiphany. And the device that's like shackled over her mouth is taken off. And Steele is basically orders Suvi to be taken to like a corner of the room, which she is. There are some like war mages in this room. Steele looks absolutely like she's just come out of a massive combat. She's very beat up. You can just see like the signs of battle on her. But most notably, what Suvi recognizes are that I think it's like one of her arms, like the veins are like twisting and shaping and like making like these geometric unnatural shapes. And Suvi overhears effectively the person who's like triaging Steele say something to the effect of I think it was called a heart seeker curse, and pointing out that she's been afflicted by this ailment, to which Steele responds with, it's okay, it's not going to find it, implying not going to find her heart for whatever reason. She's healed up as best as she could. People begin to leave the room. There is a speaking mirror that's brought, and we see Steele effectively talk to two people. One is the actual Emperor, which has way too many names for me to repeat. I can't remember them all. Very Percy-esque from Critical
Yeah.
Role. But this is the Emperor. I was going to say Saraz. Saraz Imperium is the name of like the dynasty, and Saraz is maybe the king or the emperor, I think.
Yeah.
But has a long name.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like your natural, like, well done, my captain, and Steele's very deferred and like, as you wish. Yes, like it's our privilege to serve you. Well, that person like leaves the speaking mirror, and either it's like the other person's still in the frame or it's like a second follow-up call. But this is like a powerful sorcerer who seems to be like an assistant to the king, an assistant to the emperor. And there is like a very terse conversation between the two of them. It's very clear that when we think about some of like the unsteady relationship between the Citadel and the Empire as a whole, this back and forth very much illustrates that, as this person is unimpressed with Steel, whereas the Emperor himself was impressed with Steel. And there's just a little bit of a tit for tat that happens before the call ends.
Yeah.
Steele finally does address Suvi, and we have an absolutely incredible monologue, not monologue, back and forth between Steele and Suvi. Before it gets heated, though, uh, Steele explains that she has been cursed by this Heartseeker curse, and Suvi says, who could have done this? And she said, probably a shape changer. Hey, have you met any shape changers lately? And Suvi just avoids the question. But Steele does mention that she found her ring, her father's ring, down in the cave that she had first spent the evening with Yoren and the other shape changers. So seemingly was a tracking thing, which is why Suvi had left it previously. And then Suvi just basically cuts to the chase. She says, "Did you know about the children? Tell me really what's going on?" And Steele pretty much just lets her have it and says, well, two things. First, she says, to be able to cover for you, you spent the night with Silver, and now to maintain your reputation, Silver has to be sent away to the farthest reaches of the Empire to live out his days. Basically, Siberia is the implication there.
Yeah.
And basically says, and Suvi, just so you can know, you have absolutely ruined this man's life. As someone who would have been, on the track for like military reputation and success, you've ruined his life. And then secondly says that she's extremely proud of everything she's been able to do for the Citadel and for the Empire, and basically chews Suvi out and says when my parents died, I wasn't able to go home. I continued to serve my country effectively. And only one person ever gets to go home, and that's you, Suvi. Just implying that Suvi is so entitled and kind of pampered. All this to say, with like this massive back and forth, Steele does eventually say, "Hey, when we get back to the Citadel, I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you all the things that you don't know about yet. I'll tell you about the Akeda Door, like the secret organization that Suvi's been kind of learning more about. Once we get back home, I'll tell you everything you want to know." And that is effectively where our episode comes to an end. Episode 49, A New World of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. And if you're watching just the recap, click the link for our full discussion down below.
Pop, pop. All right.
All right, my friend.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm just going to pull up the subreddit too, because there were some comments from the Patreon or from the Fireside that I wanted to get in front of me.
Yeah, I haven't listened to that yet.
Can we start with Steel? Is that okay?
Yeah. Sure.
So, Blue Button Nova on Reddit, but they are also in our Discord,
Yeah.
and quoted Brennan in the Fireside chat. This is what Brennan had to say about Steel. Steel is, of NPCs I've played in my life, probably the one I've put the most thought into. We are seeing a side of her that has always been there, but is now impossible to ignore: the gaslighting and the manipulation. Your stomach should be churning. This is nightmare fuel. And not only is that nightmare fuel of this woman astride in an engine of war, like the world has never seen before, and everything that entails and the horror of that, but also her being like, your boyfriend is a good man and you ruined his life. That's some crazy work. That's some nasty stuff. And the thing that she says to wrap it all up is, you disobeyed me. Silver did the right thing, but I love you. And my love for you means more than me hurting a good man. What does that mean about you? So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say those of you who defended Steel, I don't know about that anymore. I don't know about that.
Man, I mean, that's interesting. You're gonna call this classic me, but I
Oh
kind of
no,
empathized with
come
Steel a
on.
little bit in this
Well, come
episode.
on. I knew it.
I thought this made her a bit more human. Um, my thoughts on her haven't changed. I
I mean, it's
still am in
always
the same place with her, but to me,
yeah.
this made it more so like she is just a victim of her victim. Maybe is not the right word.
No,
A
yeah.
product of her circumstance, and
Yeah.
not like somebody who has been
Right.
machinating intentionally to like
Yeah.
do these things. If that makes sense.
I mean, it's everything we've always said about her, that
Yeah.
she's not a mustache twirling villain, but
Right.
that she's a fantastic villain. And I feel much more comfortable using that word now after reading Brennan's thoughts and seeing this episode. She is an excellent, excellent villain, and you can tell that Brennan has put tremendous thought into her.
hmm
Because in a way, you do kind of empathize with her, and it's just she's a great character, man. It,
Yeah.
it, do, it does make me wonder what other details could still be shared about what she knows. Like that, the conversation about the Akeda door, I'd be curious what she would say. I doubt that conversation is going to happen.
Mm.
Like this, to me, that was very like stereotypical. Once we get home, I'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
Person dies, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Not that she's going to, but I just but I am curious what else she'd be willing to share and what else she knows. But this is pretty much confirmation for me though that she's not like we've talked about. Is she like an ignorant or naive
Right.
soldier in this engine? And I think it's absolutely not the case that she has, that Brennan said
Agreed.
it himself, gaslighting and manipulation. I mean, he lays it out right there. But
Yeah, that's what I guess surprises me a bit, that he just was so blatant with that, because I do agree that that's what's happening, but I guess this is getting very like psychological, but like to me it doesn't feel like an intentional thing necessarily. It just feels like that's because of all the walls she has up, and the things that she has had to justify in her mind, that that's just the way it is. Like, and maybe there's not really a point in differentiating here, but to me it's not like she's consciously choosing to like, I don't know what I'm
well, I
trying to
think
say.
it's like sociopathic if you purposely do it. To me,
Yeah.
it makes sense that she unwittingly does it.
Yeah.
It's like you said, she is a product of. She's not just a product of. I mean, the Citadel is defined by its manipulation and
Yeah.
gaslighting and propaganda. So, I mean, she very much is the mirror of this
Right.
empire that she is a key. She's the sword of the Citadel, which I don't know if we've gotten a super detailed breakdown of that role, but my impression is you have the seven, the archmages, and then her, like very much,
Yeah.
if
Seems
not like the next echelon, at least somewhere up there for
right.
sure, and not just like you're Mr. Manager.
Right.
So we did
Yeah,
say
and
we did
er,
say manager. Sorry, should have finished that.
uh and yeah, I totally agree. And just to be clear, not that any of this excuses what she's doing. I just, I'm not trying to say that, just for the record, but I do think there's like a difference. Like I do think, to me, I don't know, I think it did speak to that she truly does care about Suvi, that
Mhm.
she's she's willing to throw away Silver and his career for her, and like she's willing to make all these excuses for her and stuff. I guess previously, before this, part of me at least wondered, I mean, I always knew she cared about Suvi, but like I did wonder where that line was in terms of like, you know, duty versus family, if you will. And it does seem as if Steele will pretty much pick family up until the point where she truly can't. You know what I mean?
It almost she had a I don't remember the exact line, but she had a comment about like her own children or something,
Yeah, yeah,
and it almost made me feel like she was even more favorable to Suvi
yeah.
than her own children, which is interesting because Suvi's not of her blood. What did you make? I don't remember what she said, but what did you make of that little detail?
Yeah, she basically said that like Suvi had the ambition and like the drive and like the was made of the right stuff to like be something great, whereas her kids just like didn't really have that fire. So like I think
Mm,
she sees the most of herself in Suvi, is
Mm.
what I took from it. And so like she really wants like these great things for her. Um so yeah, again, I just thought it spoke to like, okay, regardless of all of this other stuff that's happening here, I do think Steele truly does love and care for Suvi. Not that
Yeah.
she's handling any of these things right, but I just do think that's at the
Right.
center of it. Um
But
and
what did Taylor Moore tell us that Brennan's a sucker for what's the
oh yeah, yeah,
mother
yeah.
type?
Some sort of, yeah,
Uh
some archetype.
yeah, and at the time Taylor Moore was talking about Orima, but he mentioned off the cuff of that oh yeah, Brennan loves it's kind of like the smothering mother.
Yeah.
That doesn't do it justice, but
Something like that.
and you almost not that Suvi's like, held on a leash by Steele, but very much on your comment of like Suvi's ambition, it almost feels like Steele is willing to do anything to ensure that Suvi becomes what she envisions Suvi becoming,
Yeah. eh,
which I think fits that archetype a bit.
Yeah. And to me, everything about Steele's characterization here is like the ends justify the means. Like,
Hmm.
and she kind of willful ignorance to the things that she knows are wrong. Like with the
Hmm.
Greneau children. Like she at first tried to make some excuses, like, oh, we don't know where their parents are. Like we're gonna like that was somebody's job. Like they messed up.
Hmm.
And like Suvi kept pressing it, and he's like, well, you should
Hmm.
know. And then ultimately Steele breaks, and she's like, Suvi, you don't know what I have to deal with. Like,
Hmm.
some kids lost their parents, I did too. Like, like that's just the price of war, is basically what she was like coming to. Um, and so like, I don't know, it's just if it ends justify the means. And I think that she thinks that this new world, hence the title of the episode, will make everything she's doing okay. And in my mind, in her mind, she thinks she's grooming Suvi to be like the leader that this next world needs. So like Suvi, I'll do all the evil, heinous stuff because that stuff just has to happen. Like that's the world we live in. So I'll be the martyr and do all of that. And you can lead the new world with your ideals and stuff. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking Steele has painted for herself.
Yeah, I think you said that so well. I don't have anything to add to it other than just like, yeah, I totally agree. The only thing I have to add is just like, Brennan, you dog. You're so good. You're so good as a DM. I think you summarize it so well, and it really does. Hearing you say all that for me really does actualize Brennan's comment on I've put more thought into this character than anything else because I can very much see those data points you just pointed out.
Yeah.
Um,
It's,
man, just a great character.
yeah. And so I know this is classic me like empathizing with the bad guy, but like, so all that being said, just because you're being willfully ignorant and you think the ends justify the means doesn't make the horrible things you're doing not horrible.
Mm.
But to me, it humanizes Steele. Like she's just trying to do what she thinks is the best, right? Which all that to say is that I do wonder like where this goes from here if Suvi keeps pressing it, like forces Steele to like look at the horrors that the Citadel is committing, or if that just will not happen. Like if Steele's too far gone and she can't do that. It seems like we've already crossed that bridge, but like part of this episode made me wonder like again, you mentioned we might not get this conversation where Steele explains everything to Suvi, but if we do, like, is there some world where Suvi kind of is tugged a little bit backwards? Like, okay, yeah, like this is what they're really trying to do. Cause that's what it felt like to me. Like almost to the extent where maybe Steele has her own objective, like outside of the powers that be in the Citadel. Like I don't know if that's going too far, but she was like, we found out the truth about the Acadador, and like you just don't understand, Suvi. Like there's a new world where this stuff won't have to exist anymore. So like I don't know. I'm just curious for like what
I
that
think,
means.
and I think Brennan will leave that up to Suvi in terms of like if Abria is content with the clean break. Like I'm satisfied
Yeah.
with her break from the Citadel, and like now I'm satisfied and very invested and curious like where she takes the character now. But I would also, if Abria decides that she, it's like, oh man, this is controversial. What's his name? The guy from Game of Thrones who goes back to Jamie Lannister.
Mm,
Or like he breaks away from Cersei, and then
yeah.
in like the final episode, he's like, "I have to go back," and you're like, "No, dude," because you
Yeah.
just can't, get away from that. So I think if Abria decides that she likes the idea of, it's more than just a decision, it's like her upbringing and her family, and it's like part of her DNA at this point. So to your point, I can definitely see an angle where there is a little bit of a, okay, maybe we are building something newer and greater, and maybe it doesn't have to be destroying the citadel as the witches see it, because I could see her just legitimizing it in a way of, okay, well, the citadel has taken these children. Well, the witches want to destroy the citadel and kill everyone in it also.
Yeah.
So like everyone's the same. So I might as well, I can just see all that happening in a way that makes a lot of sense. But
Yeah.
uh, I do think Brennan will just let Abria decide what she wants to do with that and then take it from there.
Yeah.
So,
And again, will they even get a chance to have this conversation? Like with Ame trying to come in and whatever else might happen between now and then. Which also to that point, they're not going to the Citadel anymore because they're going
oh,
a detour to the king's nephew's coronation or
oh,
whatever. You know?
I yes, I forgot that.
Yeah. I
That's
mean, they'll
totally
ultimately
right.
go to the Citadel still, but
No, yeah, I totally forgot about that. That's
which
right.
yeah, I thought that's actually another data point that I thought was interesting in that scene because the mage, I think their name was Gray, like the wizard
Yeah,
Gray or something like that, that Steele got into a little tiff with.
yeah,
Um, there was so much to unpack from those interactions because clearly Steele views the Emperor as an idiot,
yeah.
like figurehead, but has to bow down to him. Like that was like a very illustrated point. Like, hey, we got wounded people. The ship needs repairs. Oh, repaired on the way. Yes, sir.
Mhm,
We'll be there.
yeah,
But then the fact that they didn't know that Steel had that spell, and this is a spell that Steel created, the one that destroys bloodlines. I thought
mhm,
this was just going to be like a really powerful spell that the Citadel had cooked up, but no, Steel
yeah,
made that
right.
spell. And that is a really good point that wizard brings up. Like, hey, you crafted a spell that can end bloodlines. Like, I protect the king. Like,
Mhm,
you're not going to use that against us, are you? So I'm
mhm,
wondering, like, Steel developing that type of spell probably has more meaning than just what we saw from it. And her whole, there's going to be a new world. Like, could she even be plotting, like, the Citadel destroying the Empire and like the Wizards will truly be the new power in the world or something like that? Gosh.
I mean, I could yeah, I mean, it was funny, like, yeah, his contempt for her, like, sort of not going rogue, but, like, doing like, machinating this whole thing without the collaboration of the Empire.
Yeah.
But it very much like when we think about the Akeda door in Steele's, the ends justify the means. I think you're onto something. I think maybe she saw Suvi's parents' plan as too short-sighted and was like, "No, we don't need to end the League of Shadows. Like, we need to end all of this because it's
Yeah.
all entrenched." And so, I mean, it could be that she's been playing the literal 30-year game.
Yeah.
Whereas Suvi's parents were most interested in, like, the next 3 or 4 years. It's kinda very much like you cut off the head of the Hydra and a new one takes its place.
Yeah.
Like, no, we can't just defeat this thing. It's gotta be massive.
Yeah.
And, which does make me wonder, we still don't know exactly what she got from Indri's library, but it does make me wonder, has the development of this spell has it been like a 20 or 30-year journey? Speaking to Morara's conversation with Indri on, yes, the Citadel's magic was paltry 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And, it could be that in classic Back to the Future esque, technology talk of like, I know what to build. We don't have the technology to get there yet. And like
Yeah.
having to wait till it actually is doable. I think it'd be an interesting twist if she was like the ultimate good guy for all of this, doing very bad things along the way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how she views herself, at least. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
like, that's the vibe I got, and trying to reconcile that with what appears to be her earnest love for the Citadel. Like, unless that's all just like a mask, which I don't think it is, then to me, that speaks to her not viewing the Citadel as the enemy. And and then who else is there if not the foreign armies, obviously? But the way she's speaking about the new world makes it seem like there's some enemy within that world. So the Emperor fills that nicely for me. And like, why even are the Citadel like these most crazy powerful people? Why are they even like in subject to this Emperor? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure they don't want to be.
Yeah, I don't get the impression that it's like two countries that are allied, and much and more so like you're the Ministry of War within the Empire, or like the
Yeah.
Ministry of Magic, or what have you. And it's always been at the service of the king since its origination. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do very much, if her end goal is like an apocalypse of sorts, not the end of the world, but like the end of like these massive institutions,
Mm-hmm.
maybe wizards and witches alike, it would make sense why she is so deeply committed to protecting Suvi, if she really does envision Suvi as like, you will lead that new world.
Yeah.
Um, so
Oh, I mean, we'll see what Brennan's cooked up, but I think there's so many interesting things to play with there,
yeah,
which is always the best. Like when you can when it's gray and not black and white. There's things you
yeah.
can be like, okay, well, yeah, I see why Steel would do that type of thing. Um,
Well, pour one out for Silver. Sorry,
yeah,
brother.
yikes,
That's too bad,
rip,
that's too bad, my guy.
poor guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
maybe like I guess maybe not, depending on how bad this next day and a half goes with Suvi. Like if she gets busted out by Ame and it like maybe there's a fire Steel can no longer contain, at which point Silver wouldn't have to be, you know,
well, maybe
way
he's
shadowed.
like, I don't have to move away anymore, right? And
Like,
it's like the Padme Anakin, like,
oh,
mm.
plan's already in motion.
um, staying on the Epiphany, I did like the just beautiful bringing back of the gargoyles, the ink demons,
Yeah.
um, that were like then going after Suvi. Because when Britain was describing like spirits, I was like, well, what could this be?
Yeah, I
And then
was
when it
I
was
was like, what?
yeah, when it was the ink demons, I was like, oh, that's a perfect just like tie around. I don't
Yeah.
know what the expression is. We don't know expressions, but anyway, I do wonder. I guess Ame, uh, I doubt she's now going to teleport to the Citadel, with Brennan mentioning the stopping at the what's it called? Not anointment.
Yeah,
What?
it's basically just a party for this royal dude.
Yeah. That felt like a DM like heads up of like, hey, I just don't see her taking the portal and leaving at this point. It seems like they'll get off the ship there, and then it'll be Operation Rescue Suvi. Do we think Ursulon gets? I mean, we have 5 episodes left. Surely Ursulon gets reunited, right?
Yeah, I don't know on either of those things though, because Brennan also is the one that gave her the hint about the teleportation gates.
Yeah, that's right. Actually,
So I mean, I guess they would know, like, if the ship turned, Task would be like, "Hey, the ship turned," so maybe they would know that there's somewhere else they could go. But yeah, I don't know what to make of when the rescue will be happening. But yeah, that there doesn't really seem to be much of like an above the table reason for this party detour, other than like an opportunity for them to reunite. I don't know, but yeah, I was wondering that as well, like because surely Ursulon will reunite for these final episodes, but I mean, maybe not. Maybe he'll be his own Orimo quest.
it's just daddy daycare, man, for
Yeah.
him. He's like, there's so much poo, so much poo. What do we do? Him and the 5 spirits.
But yeah, this is something we've talked about before on this show at various points. Like where it seems like as if the party had split, and because of this kind of unique format, I felt like they could get away with it for a while, like just have their own segments, but every time they've almost instantly come back together. So that's my instinct, is that that will probably happen again, but I don't know. Especially coming up on the end, maybe they would kind of set them off on different paths when, when book 2 rolls around. There's maybe even been like a little bit of a time jump or something. I don't know.
I also, for Ursulon, for someone who like said, we probably won't speak again to the Man in Black, they sure do run into each other quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically every time he's on a road, right? Which I was surprised. I mean, I guess he didn't tell Brennan like, I want to use the road to Toma, so Brennan kind of like railroaded that a little bit, not using that in a derogatory way. But yeah, it seems like that they're gonna have a recurring relationship here. Which, wonder
What
how
if
that
it wasn't?
even works. Like, it seems as if the Man in Black isn't adversarial in the moment with Ursulon. But
Yeah,
if he was, could he just straight up kill Ursulon since he stepped on a road? I wonder how that works.
we know he's in league with Orima,
Yeah,
so we found that out in the Indri arc that Orima had joined the Man in Black to take down the Citadel.
that's right. Yeah.
He's on his way to see Orima. So, the other like random thought I had was, what if it's Sir Curran and not
Mm,
the Man in Black,
yeah.
which I thought would be kind of interesting.
That will be a really interesting reunion whenever that happens.
Mhm. But presumably, whatever conversation is to be had with the Man in Black or Orima, I think, like you said, there's probably a pretty quick pathway back to the rest of the group, I would assume.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I would imagine for the big finale, they'll likely be together, but who knows?
so, also, Ursulon or Lou is DMing in Worlds Beyond uh, sometime in the hiatus after episode 54.
Oh, like
Yeah, he mentioned he was DMing at some point.
like one of their like one shots or something, for lack of a better word.
I think so, since we know since we know Aabria is leading the next
Yeah.
big world, I think that makes the most sense.
Mm.
Yeah, but something that he shared somewhere. I don't know where he shared it, but I read it somewhere. So, so yeah, um, man,
Well,
Brennan. I'll just say Brennan acted the Suvi Steele conversation just incredibly well.
yeah, it was
So,
very good. And
I
I
don't think there's
also,
anything else. Or go
yeah,
ahead.
let me check really quick. I know the only other thing I know I wanted to say was that shout out Taylor Moore, because the score was incredible this episode. Like for the first broom flight, that was so like whimsical and fun. And then I really loved the Ame's Cottage, the soundtrack to some of those moments. Just got me in my feels. So well done, sir,
Mhm.
as always.
Oh, oh, oh man, I got one last thing I want to tell you. I this is not me. I read this. Let's see. Oh, Lou DMing is from an article from Variety where they were talking about Dimension 20, and he
Mm,
mentioned he was DMing here. So I don't know who said this. I think this was on the subreddit. I don't know where it was, but the Heartseeker curse and
oh yeah.
why she seemed sure that it was not going to find her heart. First of all, do we think the implication is that Yorin cursed Steel, or was it a random shape changer?
Like in that, like recently, or were you implying that this is like an old curse?
Recently, recently,
I didn't think
because it
about it,
seemed
but
like
I
it
mean,
came out of.
what? It wouldn't be my first guess, but I certainly possible. I feel like she would have maybe brought this up with Suvi a bit more if Steele knew that Yorin was also like there, and
Mhm.
knowing that Suvi's ring was found with shape changers, and I was honestly surprised that it didn't come up. So if she had had like a face-to-face encounter with Yoren where he had cursed her, I think that there would have been more in the dialogue that referenced Yoren. So my guess would be
It
no,
doesn't need
but
maybe there doesn't need to be face to face though. Because I part of me wondered like,
true.
is it like during combat someone can just like cast a curse from like, 20 feet away? Or did he curse Suvi's ring,
Mm.
knowing that Steel would come find it?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I'm not sure. But the theory that I read, I think this was on Reddit. And again, I don't remember where I read it, but the theory is the reason that it couldn't find it was because she doesn't have a heart, or it's like a phylactery type of thing,
Hmm.
something going on there, which there's not much evidence for anything like that. But I did think it'd be kind of interesting if, one level further on Steel is not just that she's like this powerful warrior, but like she legit has taken the means to not be able to be killed, like
Hmm.
has hidden her heart away, or I
Yeah,
don't know. But
that's
so
interesting. I didn't consider that. Um, I did wonder what was happening though, because I think the way it was described is it kept stopping at her elbow.
Mhm.
So like, if it was that she didn't have a heart, I feel like the elbow thing is unnecessary. Like, why stop there? Like, why not like just be searching around her chest or something? Not to say that that can't be true still, but
Your
to me it
veins are,
spoke of like some magical
yeah,
warding, or like she was able to, I don't know, but
your veins are asking for directions.
yeah.
Where's your heart? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, kind of like a random theory
No,
there,
it's
but
a cool thought.
I do wonder about her surety as to why she was so sure that it wasn't going to find it. So
Yeah,
I
that
don't
is
know.
interesting.
You guys, you guys have to let us know your theories about it.
I also wonder if it was like her sword bearing arm, could it have been like a result of her killing that bloodline, like some protective spell that was on that patriarch that reflected onto her or something because of it or something
Mm.
like that.
That's a really interesting. Just knowing, I love that actually, knowing Ame's like reactive curses.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But
Interesting.
well, friends, I think that's gonna do it. Definitely let us know what you thought about this episode, and again, join the Discord. We got lots of chatter that happens about Worlds Beyond. Probably not a stream on Friday would be my guess. I'm assuming there's gonna be a baby by then,
Yeah.
but who knows? And then Age of Umbra episode 3 is on Thursday, which I would love to watch. I don't know if I'll be able to, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Might have more important things happening.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Anyway, I think that'll probably be it.
Alrighty, y'all. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Bye.